TTB Music Podcast.
Hello.
Hello.
It's summer.
Yeah, last.
Hot in the city.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, and like I said, there'll probably be some additional sounds of the outside world.
I know. I like
interrupting
it.
this podcast.
This time of year, we go from one podcast where suddenly it's daylight, and then the next one is boiling hot.
Yes, so this time around we have the debut album from Harry Styles, the second album from Chris Stapleton, second solo album from Angaleena Presley, the umpteenth album by Juliana Hatfield, similar for Gorillaz and similar for Mr. Rundgren at the end. But we're going to start off in true 70s style.
Yeah.
With the debut album from Harry Styles, X One Direction.
Oh, is that where he's from?
It is. Apparently they're popular with the kids.
They're a popular band with the kids.
Yeah. And now I would suggest quite popular with a Radio 2 audience.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Which is not to damn the album, I should say.
That's not. No, that's damn it with faint praise. Why don't you? Actually, do you know, I am going to damn this with faint praise. I whisper it. It's alright. It's what it is. It's alright.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It is. I don't want to shout about it too much, but it's perfectly fine. This record, which surprised me because obviously I was gearing up to this one to hate it and all that it represents.
Yeah,
but actually it's alright. I mean, if you like your middle of the road pop rock music from the last 20 years, circa 1995 onwards, and with a bit of a throwback to the 70s towards the end thrown in for good measure, then this is the album for all you middle-aged kids out there. Yeah,
very much. It's kind of like for me, what I was thinking about it when I was listening to it, what it reminded me of. Now, it was one thing I couldn't think what it was. I think it was Di actually who kind of went, "Oh, that." I can't remember what track it is. Went, "Oh, that bit reminds me of the Stereophonics," and I went,
"Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
it's the Stereophonics acoustic album."
Yes, and
this album kind of sounds like that, but channeled through John Lennon, Boz Scaggs,
Beck,
Steve Miller. Beck, yeah, Beck.
Is it Carolina?
Beck. Yeah, very much Beck.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like channeling all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's well crafted for what it is.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't find enjoyment in this record.
No, me too. Which obviously surprised me a great deal. I mean, particularly the opening of the album. You got "Meet Me in the Hallway," Sign of the Times, which I believe is the single.
Yes, that has been played
to death.
Too much deafness on Radio.
And then you got Carolina, and actually 3 or 4 tracks in, and you got quite a strong opening for a middle of the road pop album. It surprised me, and actually those songs that I've just listed, all very well crafted, well produced, but well written tunes.
Yes. And before the fourth track from the album, "Two Ghosts," is also another favourite of mine from the record. I think it gets a bit in the middle.
It goes a bit in the middle, and then actually with that sort of 70s throwback towards the end with tracks like "Ever Since New York" and "Woman."
Yes.
I mean, even a track called "Woman" has the ring of the 70s about it, doesn't it? It does sort of pick up, and I can only say, well, hats off to the guy.
Yes, a positive.
In fact, positive
debut record.
I have a feeling he's going to have a positive summer, particularly if his acting career takes off as well.
This is true, yes. The boy may go somewhere.
Yes, the boy may go somewhere. He may find he goes in several directions. I'm just getting warmed up.
The heat is on. There's a fine song by Ben Fry.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm guessing we're saying that's all right.
We're saying that's all right. That's quick canter through.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the country section.
Numbed and stunned.
Yeah. First up on our country section is Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
His second album. He was released his first album a couple of years ago called Traveller, which we failed to review actually for some unknown reason, which was a shame because it's actually a really good record.
Critically acclaimed, I believe.
Very critically acclaimed. Won a couple of Grammys, a couple of Country Music Awards, kind of stuff. Classic overnight success case of someone that before he recorded his solo album had already had written and had recorded over 150 tracks by other people.
Wow.
Or co-written by other people. So someone that had been put the work in, as they say. This record is the first of a planned 2 records for this year, apparently.
Hence the title.
Yeah, picking out some of the tracks that he wrote pre his overnight success.
Okay.
And
Smart.
and also I think one of them is also a cover of I think the Last Thing I Needed First Thing This Morning was Willie Nelson song. And it's just over 30 minutes long. And actually I think this is a really good record for introducing any kind of artist, never mind the artist of its own, because it does cover ticks all your country boxes really. You go from kind of old school Merle Haggard style country music on Broken Halos and up to No Good Living, through to kind of Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner style country rock of Second One to Know, some blues on I Was Wrong and Death Row, kind of honky tonk on Them Stems, and then even the kind of very stripped down singer-songwriter-y type thing on the quite glorious Either Way. And I think despite all those steps within flavours, as if you like, within the kind of country music bastion, I think what holds it all together is the fact that he's also got a cracking voice.
Yes.
And you know, I think a solid album in the top echelons of the solid album bracket.
You mentioned his voice just there. He has a very lived-in voice. I thought he was much older. So I sort of did a quick bio on him. We actually share a birthday, but he's 12 months younger than me. So
18 already.
He's yeah, exactly. So, but that surprised me because he has such a lived-in voice. I thought he was much older as a singer, and again that sort of feeling of a road long travelled to get to this point. Obviously comes through the songs. And if you think now you've told me something of the history there as well, with these tracks being predominantly from that period before success really found him, you kind of get that sense of a striver. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Trying to sort of kind of get the break. Anyway, it took me a few listens though, to be fair, to get into this one. I found it's quite a, it is country. It's at the grittier end of country for my taste, if you will. But actually, a couple of listens in, and it starts to sort of click. And it's a record. I said his voice is lived in. It's a record that feels very much lived in. And I think you have to live in it to sort of get into the where it's going. I don't know where I'm going, but do you know what I mean? I really liked it. Solid, as you say, rustic and solid. Yeah, and also there's a line in what comment track is that when it's saying line is, people call me the Picasso of painting the town, which I thought was a was a indeed a good line. I like a nice comparison as well. Yeah. So moving on to an artist who we've reviewed before on the podcast. Haven't we? Angaleena Presley, and American Middle Class was her debut album, which we reviewed a couple of years ago, and liked it very much. Yeah. Are we liking its follow-up? Yeah. It's alright. For me, I think she's kind of halfway between. Names have suddenly gone at blank. She's kind of halfway between those two other prominent. Brandy and Casey, thank you very much. It was Brandy I was stuck on. She's kind of halfway between Brandy and Casey in terms of their. That's her style, I think. Yes. Whereas with Brandy Clark sounds exhausted. I mean that in such a complimentary way. Again, we're just talking about people that sound lived in. She sounds like she's lived through a lot. Whereas Casey Musgraves obviously comes with a kind of a pop youthful sheen.
Yes.
And I think Angelina's kind of pitched right in the middle of the two, if that makes sense. Because am I right? I think Angelina and Brandy have worked. Are they part of that?
No, it's Angaleena,
Yeah.
Ashley Monroe,
That's Ashley
and
Monroe,
Miranda.
Again, my country girls all mixed up, y'all.
Miranda, whatever her name is, I can't remember Miranda's name.
Miranda's name.
No, sorry, Miranda.
Yeah. So we, she's. So again, it's kind of pop, got a pop kind of feel to it, whilst being quite truthful to new country or country as it is.
Yeah.
Now, one track that I really didn't like was the track Country, which for some reason has a huge rap all over it.
It does.
And I like my hip hop, but.
So I like country because the song itself is clearly a total piss take of good old boy country that is predominantly the only thing that gets played on country radio, with blokes talking about girls in tight skirts and saying country all the time and good old boys and crack open a beer and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's meant to be a kind of piss take.
Meant to be a piss take. In which case, all forgiven. That passed me by. Because I just felt it was out of step with actually the tracks immediately around it as well.
Yes, although interestingly, Only Blood, the track that's immediately before that, was co-written by Chris Stapleton.
Oh, right! Oh, there you go. So there's some really... Yeah, other than that, which maybe I need another listen, I found this, it's a solid country album, at the better end of solid.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think?
Yes, pretty much the same. I gave it another listen today, actually, and it's... kind of went up another notch in my appreciation today when I was listening to it and had more time to actually soak in the lyrics and stuff as well. And there's some really kind of funny lyrics on this record, as there were a previous album. Wrangled's really good, and Outlaw, there's that kind of thing that I liked, which is kind of honesty about kind of hating the way country music's going and finding it hard to get play on mainstream country music. So on Outlaw, it says, like, I don't want to be an outlaw, I don't want to be a renegade, I want to be a straight shooting, highfalutin rider on the hit parade. And it's the kind of thing, I'd like to be selling shitloads of records. Yes. It's just clearly I'm not willing to compromise.
Compromise, exactly.
Just to do so.
No.
So I kind of like that. And again, it's a nice mixture of old school country and kind of pop on the record as well, which I think kind of means the album kind of balances out quite nicely. And again, quite a short record.
Yeah, very short.
All round, generally positive for me.
So I think in either of those records, probably the latter one, have we had a Trump reference yet?
Possibly not.
No, because there's plenty.
Second half of the podcast, there's quite a few.
There's quite a lot, yeah.
And there's quite a lot. Even if they're not quite directly in our next
indeed. So I was kind of thinking, I think I listened to these two after the second half of the podcast, which is up and coming. And,
so next up is Juliana Hatfield's latest album, Pussycat, and as you say, this is an album that's clearly inspired by America's latest president.
Indeed.
As I don't think he's actually named tall in any.
Rhinoceros comes pretty close.
Yeah, but Rhinoceros. Rhinoceros is a interesting song, kind of thinking about John's sex life in a strange kind of way. Lyrically entertaining for that thing, but you've got that obviously short-fingered man. Is also clearly about him. I want to be your disease to a certain degree, which is the opening track. Also, When You're a Star is kind of a mixture of him and clearly Bill Cosby. Yeah. About how you can pretty much do anything, drug people and rape them and get away with it.
And even one of the tracks is called Kellyanne.
Yes. That one's not hiding the fact that it's clearly about Kellyanne Conway. Right, saying that aside, we should get to what the album sounds like musically. If you're at all familiar with Juliana Hatfield, you won't be surprised with the sound of the album. Once again, it kind of mixes that kind of power pop and grunge kind of sound that she's been producing for a couple of decades, frankly. And as per usual with the Juliana Hatfield album, sometimes it works better than others. I thought the album started off a bit slow for me. The first few tracks weren't really grabbing me particularly. But then there's a chunk of songs from track 3, You're Breaking My Heart, to that You Touch Me Again on track 7, which I thought were really excellent. And then again, it's kind of almost alternating between good and okay from there on to the end of the album. Rhinoceros and Everything Forgiven finish off the album quite nicely though. And yet again another quite short record that zips on by. Quite enjoyable listen.
I'd agree. Yeah, very enjoyable listen. The grunge obviously appeals to me, and on more than one occasion I heard echoes of obviously Hole throughout.
Yes.
Yeah, I found it a very. It covers some quite dark subject matter, but in a dark, human kind of way.
Yes, I think thankfully there's some humour in there. Otherwise, it would be
quite a bleak record.
It would be fairly grim. Yes.
Yeah.
Because lyrically, it is
lyrically the violence, particularly sexual against women, is a predominant theme of the record.
Yes, but overall, again, and I think this is the album that features highest in Metacritic score of all the albums we've reviewed this podcast. I say reviewed, still got 2 to go, but so critically, this has been the most acclaimed album of the podcast.
You can see why it's clever.
So
and entertaining.
We move on to our final 2 albums, and also it hadn't really occurred to me when I was choosing the running order, if you like, but they're the 2 albums that are the featuring albums.
Oh yes,
which hadn't actually occurred to me when I was doing it, but they are the 2 featuring albums.
They feature. They have lots of feet.
Yeah, so we'll start with the more expected feature thing, which is the latest album from Gorillaz.
Which has always been. They've always been a bit of an element of a feat.
Yes, and Humanz. Pete, Gorillaz.
Yeah, it's alright. That's a good album. Did we review that last one? I was trying to remember.
I don't think we did.
No, we didn't, because they sort of dipped out of consciousness for a bit and then came back a few years ago. And I remember listening to that album, and this is very much it picks up many of the themes of that album. It's experimental. It's urban, whatever the hell that means. It has all that you'd expect from the Gorillaz, and sort of trip hop, hip hop elements thrown in. It still sounds fresh. I mean, they've been doing this cartoon collaboration now for best part 16 years.
Yeah,
feel old now. And actually, what was quite nice about this album, because there's such a sense of collaboration that runs throughout. And I know Grace Jones was on there, but I never quite picked her up. Is that the Damon Albarn doesn't feature heavily until sort of the second half of the album, so that sort of less reliance on him enables other elements to come through. That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, standout tracks. Oof, there are so many tracks on this album to choose from.
There are so many tracks.
There are so many tracks to choose from. But the aforementioned Charger, featuring Grace Jones. I also liked Strobe Light near the beginning.
Yeah.
And Hallelujah Money obviously had something comical to say and political.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I struggled with this album the way I struggle with most Gorillaz albums, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
For me, they're a band that tend to come up with a couple of good tracks, and the rest of the album is kind of
yeah.
And that's kind of the way I felt with this. I've given it a third listen this morning. I was kind of thinking, considering all the serious talent that's on here,
some serious talent here.
Yeah. Why does it still feel a bit flat? And why is there such a lack of tunes?
There's no Clint Eastwood.
No. I think you've highlighted the higher points of the albums. Actually, the Grace Jones collab on Charger, the final 2 tracks, Hallelujah Money and We Got the Power, both strong. rest of it for me, I was really, really struggling, and it felt like a very long. All 3 listens felt like a very long 50 minutes, rather than a very short 50 minutes.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
And didn't cry out, "Come back to me! Listen to me again when you finish doing this podcast."
No.
So I don't expect this album to feature in my top 20 come the end of the year.
I like Harry Styles.
Harry has a much higher chance of appearing in my top 20 than this one does. I can tell you that. I can tell you that for a fact.
Wow.
Whether he actually does or not, that's another matter. But certainly has a much higher chance of appearing in my top 20 than the Gorillaz do.
Yeah.
So I
which all brings us very nicely round to repeat listens. Pingathon
alert.
No, I'm actually going to disable the ping machine because otherwise it will break.
Yes. Latest album from Todd, Mr. Rundgren, back again. An album that he made not kind of for his own fruition as such. This time, apparently the record company got in contact with him and said, "Would like a record."
Really?
And he kind of went, "Fine."
Right.
Which is Cleopatra Records. And he said he didn't really have an idea what he was going to do at the time because he was in the middle of doing other things, touring with Ringo amongst other things. And so he decided that he's never been a big collaborator, that maybe doing a collaboration album might be an idea.
Which I find bizarre.
Yeah.
When you think about, his whole career.
Yeah.
And all the writing he's done for other people and so on.
Yeah, so and also because he lives when he's not touring, he's living in Hawaii, so it makes it difficult and expensive to kind of get studio time to do stuff. And he also said that the whole Prince and Bowie thing had also been a contributing factor as well, and making him think, actually, who knows when he might drop dead, get out there and make some music while you've still got the opportunity to do so.
Wow.
So that was the kind of thing behind this. So he then contacted a few people whose music he liked, or people he'd worked with before in some capacity, to suggest making an album. And also, I think he also decided that what he didn't want to do was make an album's worth of duets. So he didn't want it to be a duets album specifically. Although there are a couple of duets on the record, he wanted it more to be that kind of thing where the other person can shine through as well as him, so it wasn't two artists competing for top billing on a song kind of thing. So the result, as one might expect from that kind of setup, really is certainly musically a very mixed bag because of the different kind of artists he's chosen to work with. So it does go from people like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross through to Robin, Joe Walsh, Donald Fagen, perhaps less surprisingly Daryl Hall, and the result musically is also a very mixed bag as well. It has to be said, the more I've listened to it, the more I like it, and I think when it does work well, it works very, very well. But two of my favourite cuts on the album actually are ones that kind of don't feature Todd at all, except they do because he's playing all the instruments, but are two ballads he's written that have other people singing. So Could Have Been Me was sung by Robin, and Beginning of the End featuring the jazz singer John Butte near the start of the album as well. I think are both really great tracks. Mr. Trump crops up again, as we before, on Tinfoil Hat with his tiny little hands, which is a song co-written with Steely Dan's Donald Fagen, and you can tell because it does have that Steely Dan, not just through Fagen's voice, but the kind of sound as well. As I said, there is one of the proper duets on the album is Chance for Us, which is a duet with Daryl Hall, which kind of sounds exactly what you'd imagine a duet between Todd Rundgren and Daryl Hall to sound like. Deaf Ears, the Trent Reznor track, I know it's one of the tracks on the album that kind of has kind of got mixed reviews from people. People either take to it or don't take to it. I quite like it. And also the album, I think, ends really well. It's got a track co-written with his son, Wouldn't You Like to Know, and This Is Not a Drill, featuring co-written with Joe Satriani, has some serious guitar work, which also is also Nine Inch Nails-ish in sound.
Yeah, very much so.
So overall, I think it's actually considering the various different strands and different styles and different people involved, I think it mostly holds together surprisingly well. So I think, generally speaking, thumbs up.
A thumbs up from you? Yeah, I guess a thumbs up from me as well. I actually found this. We've reviewed a number of his albums now.
We have, because he's been churning them out.
Exactly, it's been one every year for the last 3 or 4 years, including that amazing collaborative instrumental effort last year, which was really cool.
Yeah, Rundgren's.
Yeah. So I actually found this album hung together very well. And again, if you weren't massive Todd Rundgren fan like yourself and you were coming to this fairly new, I'd say this is a good jumping on point, to be honest. I mean, yes, it's not typically Todd because, yes, there are so many other artists involved, so that does impact on the musical style. However, I think in terms of career highlight, reflection of his work, this is kind of Todd in a package.
Yes.
You know, without being a greatest hits, as it were. For me, you've mentioned all what I think are the best tracks as well. I did really enjoy That Could Have Been Me, Chance for Us. I also liked I Got Your Back, This Is Not a Drill, and of course Deaf Ears. Yeah, I think it works really well here. This ongoing issue I have, I think, with Nine Inch Nails at the moment is I think it's quite weak for them, but it works here. It works here because Todd's involved in the same way he was involved in that remix. Hello. So I think it sort of complements. He complements their current sound rather nicely. Yes. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It does. So you could.
I don't mean that as a backhanded compliment.
Yes. Whilst I don't think it would happen, you could quite conceive a entire album collaboration
absolutely.
between them.
And I'd buy it. I think it'd be really good. So yeah, that comes. So I'm probably in favour of that, but comes some sort of convoluted route as to why. I think again hangs together really well. Amusing as always, witty as always.
Buy my tea.
Buy My Tea is hilarious. Yeah. I know.
Pushing Cotton.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just that whole... He is not afraid to sort of take the piss.
Yes.
Exactly. So yeah, really, really cool.
So, album of the podcast?
Oh, this has been a tough one. Because actually this has been, I think, a better podcast selection than we've had perhaps for a couple of months. Dare I say it?
It's certainly been, I think, certainly a more balanced one, I think.
Yeah. We had a stinker a couple of months ago, but I couldn't find anything to say I liked.
Yes, I'm just trying to think what my...
but this one, I'm struggling. Because, I mean, props to Harry Styles for surprising the hell out of us. But it's probably a toss-up between Angaleena and Todd, for me.
Ditto, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what my choice would be as well. So that's us done for another podcast. Next up, I'm not sure we're going to review next podcast, actually. So...
Sometime in the summer. It's coming soon.
Yeah, some albums, probably.
Soon. Yeah. Excellent.
With some music and stuff.
Well, it usually helps.
And the words.
And the words thrown in for good measure.
The things.
You need the words. Bye.